Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and I'm really excited for this video. You see, we're going to talk about Kor'gath. Kor'gath is the legendary lord for the Monogod Nurgle faction, which we are all aware suffered from a lot of issues when it came to the campaign, how the faction worked with their mechanics. It was very stylized, very unique, but it meant that the campaign was tediously slow. You basically never really had cash, and spawning extra armies was just a massive issue. That was always fine in Realm of Chaos, because obviously you had those events where you could go to the Realm of Slaanesh and get a lot of money. However, that's not here. So I was a little bit worried about Kor'gath. I was worried that Nurgle would just not be fun, and I'm glad to say I'm wrong. I'm glad to say I'm wrong. So keep in mind, for this you will need the Champions of Chaos DLC, but let's just go into it. So, yeah, Nurgle has a bit of an issue where units are very expensive, not just to buy, but generally their upkeep. There's not a lot of money that you will get. Keep in mind that right now I'm playing on easy mode. This is just because of the showcase, and it still makes my points come across. We're going to build up a small army. I'm not really going to bother showing that here, but it's the fact that we're fighting against lizardmen. We're going into lizardmen cities, which they have a lot of towers and all that type of stuff. And obviously in harder difficulties, you'd need more units anyway. So it becomes a massive issue, and even just in easy, I get taken down all the way to 560 income, which is absolutely ridiculous, considering that it's mostly Nurglings. But as you can see now with the Champions of Chaos stuff, it's still expensive, however, it is a little better. Hell, at the beginning I could have made things easier, and rather than recruited Plague Bearers, I could have recruited Marauders Nurgle, which are just as tanky. Yes, a bit less so, but hey, it does lighten the load. I know this doesn't sound too exciting, but it does get a little bit better once we start looking at the settlement itself. It's more of the case of already you can cut the costs, and if you were in, say, normal, hard, you wouldn't go down to the red so easily, which is something which is very well known here. Again, we don't have the rifts from the Realm of Chaos map to be able to go into the Realm of Slaanesh and get some cash. Because as we are all aware, the biggest issue for Nurgle was the early game, and this takes away that issue. So we're going to look at the settlements now, and this is going to be the same wherever you capture them. Obviously within the Dragon Isles and Immortal Empires, and it would be the same for the Realm of Chaos map, but you do have the benefit of the Realm of Slaanesh. The buildings are still going to be expensive. The big difference here is that many of your buildings have now been doubled up. So yes, I know this, again, does not sound interesting, but it actually is. So when you look to the military buildings, some of the advanced ones too, not the infrastructure ones, which is a bit of a shame. I think the infrastructure ones could really benefit from having at least one of the cycles. This means that as the cycles progress, you're going to have more units in your reserves, which, as you can imagine, for a Nurgle faction is very beneficial to you. Even if they're buildings that you don't necessarily want, it adds in a lot of extra ones to have in reserve, in case you get attacked, in case, you know, the AI does the AI stuff and player bias kicks in, where everyone just starts dogpiling on you. You've got it there. There might be expensive units, there might be cheaper units, but this really does help Nurgle out a lot. Kor'gath is a lot more fun. I'm actually, honestly, really surprised that it was just this. Like, it's not really adding any major changes. The buildings are still expensive. You're still going to have a few issues with money, but as you have access to cheaper units, just the Marauders, essentially, but that frees up some possible income, which then allows you to kind of play around with stuff. It's just really important to have something like that here. So again, when starting up an army, you can go, this is again easy, but it still holds true. You know, here, instead of going for the Beast of Nurgle, which costs 1600 and 200 upkeep, the Toads that cost 1200 and 150 upkeep, or even the Plague Bearers, which you might not really need early on, which is 1400 and 140 upkeep, you can go for, say, the Marauders, which is 850 and 106 upkeep. It saves so much more cash. But to further add to this, I'm going to add a little scenario here and see what you guys think. So this campaign itself is legendary, and yeah, I'm gonna try and cut costs as much as possible. I generally don't like the Warhounds, so really I would use Plague Bearers, which would probably take us down to the same cost, more or less. But it's still a pretty decent army nonetheless. You just have to deal with the usual lizardmen, and they can be a bit of an annoyance to deal with at the very beginning if you let them expand. But in general cases, you shouldn't really have too much of an issue, because it's move here, move to Dreadrock, then go through the ocean and go to Shattered Stone Bay. And here we are at the full area. A little bit of extra money, a little bit of extra upkeep. That doesn't seem like a lot, but for Nurgle, it does kind of help. Keep in mind that I have not built anything. I've not spent any money on any buildings through both. So you can see that you're already kind of struggling with cash. Korgath is supposed to be a slow campaign. Nurgle is supposed to be a slow campaign. But this is still a little bit better. So had I built something with infrastructure buildings, we'd already be fairly ahead. And yeah, I know this doesn't seem like much, and you're wondering, well, this doesn't mean anything. You've got a full army. Why do you need a full army? The idea is you have a lot of aversion. The ogres would declare war on you pretty soon after this. Ghost is also one of your strong contenders, so already it's not bad. You do have something there to add a little bit more to it. This also means that the Plague Bearers, the Beast of Nurgle, the Extra Toads, the units that I would have used in general are now saved up in case I need them for anything else. In case the ogres attack, in case I need to spawn a second army quickly. Yeah, it's not as great for Korgath, but, well, you know, he boosts up the Nurglings quite well, so you're alright with this situation. Again, the whole double dipping thing is just great. It adds to a lot more flavor. Like, for example, one of them gives you a Soul Grinder of Nurgle and a Chaos Warrior of Nurgle. Yeah, not great, because like two very drastically different units. However, since you're able to get to those areas quite fast, because Korgath is able to increase growth quite a bit, you know, the whole 5 per battle, and once you have like 2 armies, you start getting a lot of growth. You're not going to need the Soul Grinders that early because of the fact that they're just so stupidly expensive. So you can get the Chaos Warrior instead. Keep the Soul Grinder for the time that you need it, and you still get something of benefit from that building. Making the buildings more beneficial for you is something very, very important, I'd say. I mean, just look at the amount of units that you can get now, which is quite impressive, because yes, Nurgle did lack on troops. All the Monogod factions did lack on troops. Thankfully, that's been resolved now. But I think that Nurgle really had that issue, like, it was just so noticeable compared to all the others. Unfortunately, no anti-large, which is kind of frustrating. I feel like Nurgle is still missing some anti-large options, but yeah, we can expect DLC in the future. I mean, it's almost certain that eventually we'll get Tamukon, which will hopefully bring in some anti-large, but this means obviously that you do get access to a new Lord option. You will get access to the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle, which can then turn into a Demon Prince of Nurgle with the same function as the Herald turning into the Great Unclean One. And not to forget that the War Shrine is also a mount option too, which, you know, War Shrines, really, really cool. So yeah, I think this actually really resolves a lot of issues with Nurgle. I'll do a stream at some point during the early access period just to showcase why, but I know a lot of Nurgle fans were a bit worried, and yeah, now you've got a little bit of a fix coming up. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this.